So our workshop project for today is doing underwater watercolor. So here are some samples of what that looks like. We have a really cool bubbly watercolor background, and then the fish and seaweed and other things are added in using markers or colored paper, tissue paper. You can cut the fish out of old magazines, fun things like that. So what we are going to start with is making our watercolor background. Alright, our supplies for this underwater watercolor are regular watercolors. We also have some liquid watercolor that we made using old markers. So you can take an old marker that's all dried out and put it in a little bit of water overnight, and it will turn the water into a liquid watercolor to use. This one is the inside part of the marker, so we cut open the marker, and that actually worked a little better. But either way, it kind of works to make a nice liquid watercolor that's easier when you're filling a whole sheet of paper. But we can also use some of our regular watercolors to add more different colors. You can see in this sample right here, there's some greens and yellows kind of mixing in, and maybe some pinky purples that make the blue a little more interesting. So Ellie's going to get started. So just dip in there.
Are you going to speed this part?
Okay, so as you can see, Ellie's almost done with her background. Just keep putting a little bit more of that blue liquid watercolor on there, and then she can add in some of the colors from her watercolor set to give it some more interest. She's keeping it nice and wet and watery. That helps make it look underwater-ish. Seeing those nice little bubbly spots kind of coming out as the water moves on the paper. The paper's bubbling. Watercolor paper will do that if you don't tape it down. If we were doing a project that was very detail-oriented, then we'd probably want to tape it down. But for this project, because we're just getting a background, I don't mind that it bubbles. Do you mind that it bubbles? Yes, we should have taped it down.
It's harder to paint.
Yeah, a little bit. It is harder to paint. Get it all covered. And then add in some different colors. So remember, go into your clean jar first, and then maybe into the red or the purple, and add some nice purple colors in there. Or some greens would look nice too. You can add some plain water to help mix that around, blend it in so it doesn't look like, there you go. To get the bubbles on it, what we're going to do is add some salt. When Ellie's done with her background, she'll add some salt to help add those underwatery bubbles. The watercolor should be really wet before you add the salt, and that's why the liquid watercolor helps too. If you didn't make the liquid watercolor and you're just using the tray of watercolors, then just make sure you add a bunch of water from your regular water jar there to help make it nice and wet. Just remember when you are mixing, what happens if you mix that red and the green too much though? You'll get brown. So yeah, keep your mixing fun but separate. So any type of salt will work for this project. The type that I really like, because it's a little bit bigger, is pretzel salt. So we sometimes save these packets, and they work really well to sprinkle on to make the bubbles in the background. I have some of that already set to go in this jar. I save it afterwards, that's why mine turned kind of blue in the jar, and then reuse it. You can just throw yours away afterwards. Are you about ready to add your salt? Yeah. Okay. Okay, put out your hand, or you can put as much as you want on and just sort of sprinkle it on there.
It feels weird in your hand.
It feels weird in your hand. Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's really neat to see how it sucks up the water towards the salt. A little bit of science in there too. Put on as much as you want, wherever you want those bubbles to go. When you're all done, then we'll just let it sit and dry, and then after it's dry we can scrape the salt off. Alright, so we have let our salt dry for about an hour on our paper, and now we can scrape it off. You could put it right into the garbage or right down onto here. Use your hand to... Oh, we didn't let it dry quite long enough. I saw a little streaking in there, but not bad. Some really cool bubbles. Let's get all of those salty pieces off.
It's a bubble catastrophe.
A bubble catastrophe? Not really. So we take all of the salt off.
Look at my hand.
Did it go on there? The salt and a little bit of loose watercolor. Okay, set that aside for a second. And then we can take our leftover salt. I saved mine. Like I said, you can save yours or put yours in the garbage, whichever you want.
Ah! Whoops.
That's okay. Alright, then when you are at that point, you can take your watercolor piece, lay it flat so they can see it, and you can add markers. If you add markers, you could do a design like this on there. You can make seaweed and fish and draw them in with your markers. Another option is to use scrap paper and tissue paper to make your fish and your whatever details you want to add on there. And the last option, you could take an extra little piece of watercolor and do some different colored watercolor papers and then add those on and glue them on with a glue stick or a glue bottle, either way. So however you want to do it, you can take your newly finished underwater watercolor background and add your underwater scene. Thanks for doing the project with us. Bye.